And now a word from Premium Edition Games. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Premium Interviews. I'm your host, Barry from Premium Edition Games, and today I'm joined by two very special guests from Comey Games. We got Julian Spillane, the CEO, and Orie Falconer, one of the game designers and sound designers over there at Comey Games. So, welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, we're here to talk some Mighty Fight Federation. But before we get into that, just why don't you each do a little background on so that our listeners and watchers can kind of get to know you, who you are, and what makes you so awesome.
Sure. I mean, okay. So I've Julian. I founded Comey Games. I've been in the games industry for almost 20 years now. I can feel my bones turning to dust as I say that. I've worked in AAA. I used to work at Silicon Knights, and I've worked on games that some people consider classics and games that some people consider travesties. I've worked in mobile. I've worked in a bunch of different spaces, but I was drawn back to the indie world for the creativity of it all. And I'd experienced big, I'd experienced small, and so I got back into doing indie development when I created a game called Use Your Words, co-created with my good friend Brett Black, and that did well enough for us that we're like, okay, let's do something else. So we started helping other indies get onto console platforms because it's something I've done my whole career is shipping games on console. So, I've gone as far back as the Nintendo DS, and I've got a title from that era entirely forward of every single console generation. So we're like, okay, well, let's just help people do that who don't have the resources and means. So we published a game called Fossil Hunters for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and then a game called Halcyon 6 for Nintendo Switch as well. And at that point, Orie and I have been toying around with, the idea of making something kind of fun. And we were working on a prototype of like a little party competitive game. And that's kind of where the genesis of Mighty Fight came from. And we kind of went from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And for myself, I'm Orie, and I've been working in the games industry for about a decade. I've always been like bouncing in a little bit of a multidisciplinary sort of way where I do a lot of like game design on projects, but also sound and music. One of my biggest things was I did the music and sound for a game called Way of the Passive Fist, which you have a huge banner for back there. It was kind of a rhythm game hybrid of a beat 'em up, like a Streets of Rage style beat 'em up, with a rhythm element, which was really cool. And recently, like alongside working as a game designer and sound designer on Mighty Fight Federation, I also did sound design on a game called Star Renegades, which came out fairly recently, which is like a kind of a tactics RPG, sci-fi tactics RPG. And yeah, I've just been a collaborator with and good friend with Julian for several years, and we've always found projects to work on with each other, and this one was no exception.
Yeah, that's kind of this is like the all of our creative energies from different like disciplines thrown into one product right here, because it was a very small team. For the brunt of it, Orie and I were the only full-time people on the project, and lots of contractors coming on and off. So it was definitely a labor of insane love and passion from us.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. You can really tell. Not only when playing this, but any game you could tell when it's a labor of love. But really, just playing Mighty Fight, you can tell that, and definitely we'll want to get into that a little bit. So you mentioned this messing around with party, this party atmosphere. What was like your inspirations to bring in Mighty Fight, and how did it go from this, party little atmosphere to what we have today?
So there's this really stupidly obscure Japan-only Bomberman game for the Sega Saturn called Bomberman Fight. There's Saturn Bomberman, which everyone knows because that came to North America. And Bomberman Fight is this weird three-dimensional versus Bomberman game where everyone's got health bars and like it's very, very bizarre. I really encourage everyone to check it out at some point. There's like one YouTube video of it out there. But I had a copy of it when I was playing in the Saturn era. I got an import copy, and I always kept thinking back to it. At one point, like I whipped up a little prototype and was like, hey, check this out. And Orie and I started playing around and like knocking each other around with bombs in this 3D arena. And like the genesis of it was kind of coming together, but it didn't start life as a fighting game. It started life as a weird party Bomberman inspired, like, let's just have fun and make wild chaos kind of game.
Yeah, I remember, when we were messing around with it, like the whole fun was like, we had like basically like a platform flying in space, and it was all about just like knocking people off of that platform with your bombs. And like we started experimenting with how far those bombs would throw you, and then wouldn't it be cool if you like bounced off a wall and like ricocheted like a pinball in different directions, and then that we just kind of kept coming up with new ways of like, well, how can we create setups, like cool setups of like bouncing someone into a wall and then somewhere else and then following something up. And then we just kind of like realized eventually we were making a fighting game. We were kind of just injecting our just passive love for the fighting game genre into it.
Yeah, I think it really came to like I think we realized we were making a fighting game when we're thinking, okay, well, what if bombs was just one archetype? And what if another character had this and could do this? And suddenly we're like, okay, well now we've got a character that like dashes in and can do like a short punch and knock someone back. We're like, oh, okay, we're making something inspired by Power Stone now.
Yeah.
And once we made that conscious decision, we ran with it because we're I'm not going to shy away from it. We kind of have in the past, but I'm being shameless nowadays. Power Stone was a huge inspiration for us, as was Air Gaze and a lot of and like even Thrill Kill to a lesser extent. But these 3D arena platform fighters from the late 90s. They're a genre that nobody's touched since then. It's kind of laying dormant, frozen in ice, like Steve Rogers.
Yeah, the arena fighter kind of became something else for a while, and like that version of it never really resurfaced.
I think Smash. I think the 2D platform fighter kind of just killed it because it became the dominant like approach to that kind of party fighting game, simply because the sheer number of brands that people understood and knew that were in it, right? Like the power and force of Nintendo and like the funness of the game. But I think that kind of just people forgot about that you could do a 3D fighter like that. And so once we realized we were making a fighting game, we started leaning into, well, what makes Power Stone good and what isn't so great about Power Stone? And like movement, the fluidity, the speed, the over-the-top characters. That's what makes the environmental interactions. That's great. But what's bad about it, it has no competitive viability whatsoever. Like Power Stone is luck. Did the Power Stone spawn near you? Cool. Did you get a flamethrower and like the flamethrower is what wins the battle for you?
Yeah.
Fine.
It's like it's a amazingly fun party experience, but like as a fighter, it kind of becomes like less about what character you're actually playing and more about like whether or not you got to a certain item before the other person. Yeah. So we kind of wanted to like kind of refocus everything onto the character roster themselves and kind of just make the things that they can do like that much more crazy and interesting.
Yeah, I'll say when I first played it, immediately memories of Power Stone 1 and 2 came up. Like immediately. Just no Power Stones, floating around to grab to get OP or anything like that. But you're right. The more I thought about it, there haven't been a lot of games in that arena style fighting. So this was a breath of fresh air. And I really hope, everybody who plays this has that same reaction because it's a sorely lacking genre. And because of that, it's almost like you're part of this revival of a dormant genre, which is fantastic. So doing that, what are some of the hurdles you guys encountered? Because this is a massive game. This isn't, you talk about an indie game that is a small thing. This is a massive game. What were some of these hurdles maybe that you encountered while reviving this?
A lot. Alphabetically or categorically, I got to think about this. Honestly, making a fighting game is probably the dumbest thing you can do. If you're an independent developer, I highly don't recommend it to other developers. It's hard, right? And like, because we were hell-bent on making sure that this game had some kind of competitive life to it. Even we didn't yeah, obviously in our dreams, people are playing this at Evo main stage, but even just the idea that it is a game that a tournament scene can form around, that competitive players can play, it required a lot of balancing and fundamentals and really understanding what we were bringing to the table. How do you translate those things into 3D in a way that isn't like, with Tekken and those kinds of 3D fighters, your characters are always facing one another, even when you're, dashing up, you're strafing around one another and you're not free roaming. So what happens when you can free roam, free jump, free move? How does that affect things? Do we have an explicit lock on? How does our auto lock on feel? It literally everything. It's complex decision making all the way down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you, feel that you overcame them? Did you feel like, oh, there's still things you might have wanted to do differently, or you're like, oh no, I took that challenge?
I do think that we maybe in retrospect went a bit too hardcore with the game, and I think that's the irony being it's incredibly hard to make something that satisfies a hardcore audience, but in doing so, I think we not alienated, but we didn't cater to people wanting more of a casual experience, which is why when people play the game, like guys like Alex Valle, like Mr. Street Fighter, one of the greatest fighting game players of all time, he picked it up, played it on stream multiple times, and went, I get this. And then I think to a lot of other people, it can look a little chaotic without understanding the mechanics. But once you're in there, you're in there. And I think that was if we were doing things a little differently, I think we'd have a bit more like casual oriented language in the game. Maybe go back and add some items, do some things that add a bit of, take a bit of the burden off of having to get good. Because like any fighting game, if you play Street Fighter and you don't know how to do a Hadouken or Shoryuken, it's not as cool as when you watch a pro player not only land specials, but also crazy combo setups that go into a special, that end in a super, and it's a spectacle at that point. And I think the gap there is a bit wide in Mighty Fight, but that's why it fits its niche, right? Yeah. That's really like the people we kind of made it for. So,
hey, as long as it works.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Smash before, and one of the things that Smash Brothers has done consistently is bring characters from all these different franchises together, and you tackled that, and you brought characters from 4 different franchises into yours. I'm curious, what was that process like to be able to get these characters and put them into your game?
It was awesome, and we're extremely thankful that everybody entrusted us with their brands, from Platonic, Human Nature, Arc System Works, and Artplay. And it was a lot of like leaning into my contacts and kind of calling favors upon people a little bit. But even then it was just, people were surprised. Like when we reached out to Human Nature specifically about Toe Jam and Earl, everyone there was just kind of like Greg and Knapp and those guys were just like, really? You want to put Toe Jam and Earl in a fighting game? Sure, I guess. And the only time, like the last time they'd been in 3D was Toe Jam and Earl 3 for the Xbox, right? And so we kind of had to start from scratch, figure out like how are these aliens going to work as a tag team combo team. Yeah,
it was, and it's interesting because like some of the other characters that we brought in, like that have a bit more of a combat focused like bedrock to their abilities and stuff. Toe Jam and Earl, we basically had to like really figure out how to make them a fighting character. And like you said, like a lot of our characters are built as kind of like homages to even like different genres of fighting games. So like Toe Jam and Earl made perfect sense to be a tag fighter. So we just decided to like split them up in a way that's like, okay, Toe Jam is the faster one, and he's got like all of these like breakdancing type moves, but then you've got Earl, who's like the stronger, not so fast, but just like hits super hard. Had a lot of fun of like recontextualizing some things like the presents that you pick up in Toe Jam and Earl, basically making them into like your analog for traps and for projectiles and carrying them around in the same kind of way. And it was fun really trying to be true to the source material on all these characters.
And in a way, our guest characters kind of filled the gaps that we wanted for what the audiences were clamoring for. Like, oh, this game doesn't have items. This game doesn't have like things that you can pick up and throw and interact with. And so with Toe Jam and Earl, we basically added the present mechanic, and then we kind of doubled down there with Kunio and Ricky, where we've got items from River City Ransom, the dodgeball, you've got the baseball bat, you've got a pipe you can pick up and throw and use, and it changes their move sets. And then Miriam is absolutely bonkers, crazy. She's got 3 stances, at least 6 moves per stance.
She easily has the largest moveset of any character.
Yeah, it's very, very, very. She's a complex character to play, but we wanted to really capture all the item types you could find. I think we have almost every weapon type except for gun in there.
Yeah, just about.
But we do have a taunt that uses the gun animation. So we tried to work everything in there. And then with ukulele, like, the Platonic team were a blast to work with. We really, they were the ones we iterated the most with in terms of like story and how their narrative came through, because they're, an active franchise and they're doing a lot of cool stuff with the characters. So we wanted to make sure we stayed true to their tone, their voice, and we wanted to insert a potentially plausible canonical narrative into Mighty Fight.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just, these characters are now in the game and there's no connection to it. It fits into the actual narrative structure and ongoing story of those characters' lives. So them being in Mighty Fight matters to the overall universe.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun.
You talked before about passion and love, and that's one of the things when I first played it. I forget who I played as, one of your original characters. And then I realized, I'm like, wait, ukulele's down there. I like ukulele. I'm going to go try them. And when I was playing and the story started and they're all talking like they do in ukulele, that hit. I'm like, that's the attention to detail I love. Like you translate all of that in there. And that, to me, that's above and beyond. And, when you said earlier about, the love and the passion you put in behind it, that immediately thought of that, remembering having that experience, like, yep, I know exactly what you mean, because you really do. You capture these characters, and I think that's amazing. And I hope that everybody who plays feels the same way. But speaking of characters, I gotta ask: is there anybody you wanted that you either didn't get or that you just decided not to reach out for? But if you could have had anybody.
Oh, I mean, if we could, the sky's the limit there.
Yeah.
We did at one point very tersely, briefly have a conversation with Capcom Japan, but they just didn't really they had no interest in reviving the brand at the time, and so conversations just kind of fell apart there. But I mean, the idea of bringing Power Stone characters into Mighty Fight was, the ultimate icing on the cake, cherry on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are tons of characters that we would like to that we wanted to get in from a guest side, but there's also we have a whole thing in our mind about what the final roster could have been. And, obviously we're a small team and we had to at some point draw the line, when are we releasing this game? So we had to stop and lock down our roster. But we had a lot of pie in the sky ones and some ones that we actually had real conversations with. Unfortunately, so many of those are locked behind NDAs.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, there's just some, obviously any, dream characters are dream characters, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much anyone on anyone's Smash list was on our list as well, right?
That's it.
I was happy to be the consolation prize game, well, didn't make it into Smash, but hey, they're in Mighty Fight, so great.
Yeah, exactly.
Ride those coattails, right?
Hey.
So you're speaking Smash and Nintendo. What was it like working? I mean, you've done the console stuff, but now as a smaller studio, working with Nintendo and with Valve and Sony and stuff, how are those relationships?
Oh, they're great. I mean, I the guys, the folks at Nintendo, especially the folks in the SDSG team over there, software development support group. I've been working with some of the same people there since I was working in the Wii and the DS. A lot of them are lifers.
Nice.
So it's funny just to have conversations oh, what are you up to now? Great. So they've moved around internally, but they're doing, similar jobs. And same thing with Sony. We've got a really great account rep there who it takes care of us in terms of getting us awareness and placement. And also we launched a PlayStation 5 launch window title game, right? Mighty Fight came out as a full PS5 game within 2 months of the console's launch, which is something that it's a nice privilege to be in because you get all those early adopters, but also it's just great that Sony was that entrusting of us with new technology and new opportunities. So that was really great.
That's fantastic. So now I have to ask, what's next?
Oh, we got a whole bunch of stuff we can't talk about, which is hilarious because we're currently working on 3 separate projects right now that are all with bigger publishers. Some of them are going to be some really exciting news. They're all most of them are kind of fighting or multiplayer game adjacent, and it's pretty huge stuff for us. But yeah, some of them I don't think we'll be able to talk about till January. Others, mid next year, and then some in 3 years, right? It's but yeah, that's it. But just know that we're Mighty Fight has been a really great conduit for us to show off our chops and what we're capable of, and a lot of the bigger publishers are taking notice now, which is just a good feeling for us.
Absolutely. I was hoping you were going to say Mighty Fight 2, get the sequel rolling.
We gotta leave this one time to ferment. It's gotta get good,
Absolutely.
right? Stay in barrel for a few years, then we tap.
That's true. So for those of you that are watching that just you've heard us talk Mighty Fight and you just want to know a little bit of a rundown on this game. Like we said, it's a 3D arena fighter that's been revived. You got 16 total characters, which is fantastic. That includes ToeJam and Earl, Yooka-Laylee, Kunio and Riki, and Miriam, which I'm super excited about. Miriam, I can't wait to play. You got the arcade mode. Each character has their own unique arcade mode with its own story, which is awesome. I love when that's included. You have a mission mode. You've got training, so you can, as you say, get good. And what's cool is up to 4 fighters at once, which really brings back those Power Stone days. So that's like the rap sheet. But I want to hear from you guys. Why should someone watching this right now head right over to premiumeditiongames.com and pick up their copy of Mighty Fight Federation?
Orie?
Well, Mighty Fight is, I think, we put a lot of our heart and personality into it, and it's more. I think the end product ended up being even more than just a love letter to Power Stone and to arena fighters. It kind of ended up being just a love letter to all fighting games in general, and just a lot of our greatest influences. There's a lot of our love for stuff like TMNT and 80s and 90s era cartoons and movies.
We snuck a lot of Simpsons quotes in there.
Oh, sure did.
We sure snuck a lot of them.
And you'll have fun finding them all.
Yeah. And also, Mighty Fight is literally the only game on the planet where you can play as the boys from River City Ransom beating up a skeleton while Yooka-Laylee transforms into a helicopter and shoots you with bullets, and ToeJam and Earl summon a rocket ship from space. It's crazy, it's wacky, it's fun.
Yeah.
It is also highly competitive and deep. It's got crossplay, so you can play against opponents on PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. So it's the player base potential is there. We have rollback netcode, so for those people who are really into that, it's nice and fluid, and nice and responsive even under low latency conditions. So if that's your bag, we got you covered.
For those of you that want to know more about Mighty Fight Federation, you can absolutely go to fightingmighty.com. Fightmighty.com, or at FightMighty on Twitter. Check them out. You could also go to comigames.com to see all the wonderful things you guys have done. And if you want to follow Julian and Orie, you can go to at Julian Spillane on Twitter and at Falconer on Twitter. Please check them out. They're fantastic guys. And I can't wait to see what comes next. And of course, if all of this excites you, go to premiumeditiongames.com right now and pre-order your physical edition of Mighty Fight Federation for the Nintendo Switch. And make sure to get that. It's one of our Series 3 titles. Check out our other Series 3 titles while you're there. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Barry, for having us. This is we're super excited to be working with you guys and getting the game into people's hands, literally, not just metaphorically speaking.
No, the physical's real.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the challenge, and for all you guys out there, hopefully it's a good one. Uh,
Yeah.
thank you guys, everyone, for watching. Have a great day, and take care.